Welcome to Dell EMC Networking Tech Talk with OpenManage Network Manager. This session is on OMNM 6.5, and this is Bill Acevedo, and today's topic is actions, also known as CLI scripts, sending commands to devices. So what are actions? I guess the best way to show you is to actually show you some here. So off the resource manager, you can right click and there's a set of preceded actions that always come with OMNM, and you can create your own. But I want to show you some of the things you can do. So generally when you create your actions, they're going to be of the show, config, or manage. These are just categories based on what you set or how it was set when created. And so sometimes you just want to run a show command to a box. Sometimes you want to do a configuration, and sometimes you have something that's more of a diagnostic nature. Let's just give you an example here with a show command. If I were to just do a let's just do a show, I don't know, IP traffic. Let's try that. So all it's going to do is it's going to basically use the known credential we have on this box. It's going to go send a command called show IP traffic, and you're going to see that here. So here you are, you got the data, and so it's just showing you we're doing enable show IP traffic, and this is the output. And so this is this is one way to do a show command. Now, configuration command is obviously more interesting. See if we can pick one here. Whoops. Happened to my 6010 box. .50. Okay. And so we do actions, and we go to config again. And let me see if I can find something that's somewhat interesting here. So let's say we want to create Vlan and assign all trunk ports. So I'm going to say continue. Now this is a preceded action, and it has attributes in it. So you're being asked to enter some information. And so I'm going to say, you know, this is my test Vlan name, test N we'll call it, description. I'm going to put in, you know, description, Vlan, some stuff, and then some Vlan ID, you know, some numbers telling you here the valid range here, and we say 500. So you can push this command to a box, but one of the nice things you can do is actually view that after it gets pushed, so you can see the exact command that was sent. I wanted to show you one that was a little more interesting there on the config side. I don't know, let's just pick one here, I guess. So I'll give it some Vlan ID, some interface name, some IP address, and some mask. But what I wanted to point out here on most of these tasks, what you have is this preview. And so you can actually go and preview what's being sent to the box. You hit preview, and you'll see that I'm sending config, interface, this is my interface name, some various other commands you didn't see, and then followed by the VLAN I put in, the IP address and mask, and then again the no tagging of the interface and untagged. So anyway, that's a very good way to be able to see the command even before you send it, if you wanted to preview it or review it. I'm not going to push that one, but I want to just point out that functionality. But the main part of this is now that you kind of know how actions are used, how do you create these actions? And so what we're also going to see is that there's different, you notice here that we clicked it off of the resource manager. This is a top-level managed equipment action. We can also create actions off of ports. You'll have this option to go and right-click and then invoke actions. If there are any at the port level for that device type, they would show up. Same with interfaces. And so I just want to point that out, and that you're going to see some options on how to create these. And this is where that functionality will come in. So let's just jump over there real quick. I'm going to go to Actions and Automation. And so on the Actions portlet is where we want to dive in here. So when we create a new action, here's where you see the option to do a show or a config command. There's other types of advanced actions. If you want to do configuration templates, there's a way to do it. You can actually tell it to invoke an external executable. You can actually run Perl scripts. You can actually even write RESTful JSON scripts if you want to interact with some other REST server somewhere. Today we're just going to focus on basically the show and configure, but let me just show you one here on how to do, like, say, a configure command. And so test in there. And so we want to create some useful type action. But here's where I was showing you off the portlet. It could be off the manage resource portlet, the cards portlet. It could be interfaces. It could be by ports. And so if you want it to be invoked from one of those portlets, you would have to create that here. And that changes a little bit the way it gets invoked. But let's just, for now, just stick with a simple one, manage devices. And I'm actually going to jump over to one that's already created to help show this a little bit better. So I'm going to just search for one called, maybe in my demo list here. See if we have a good one to show. Let's look at this one here. So again, this is for managed devices. When you create these scripts, this action association basically tells it what devices are appropriate for this action. And so if it's a Force 10 device or an FTOS device, you want to add that. If you want to confine it to a model, you could here. For now, we can say any. And that just means that this script will only be invocable from a Force 10 device. Now, the next part of this is we should look at the attributes, but let's look at a script first so you can understand attributes. So you can add multiple scripts here. It's going to invoke the first one that actually it actually meets a condition for the device. And so let me show you that. You have a target filter here. And so if you have certain models, you need to say only execute a certain script for a certain model. You would create a target filter for that model, and then you'd have another script for another model. And that's where you get multiple scripts, and it would invoke the one that matches. But anyway, that's a little more advanced. But what you see here is I have a very simple condition here where I do a config term. After I log into the device, I'm going to do a config term. I'm going to give it this interface name. I hard-coded it here, but it could be an attribute kind of thing. And then switchboard acts as Vlan. And so this is an attribute. And what I want to show you here is that there's an attribute here called Vlan number. And so I'm going to jump back here to the attribute. So you can create any kind of attribute for your scripts. And so you'll see here that I have this one called Vlan number. It's a simple integer type setting. And so you can actually have the ability to set specific VLANs. You can set constraints on them. Let me just pick one here, for example. So let's just say I wanted to just go to a string. It's a better example. So I wanted to create a new string attribute. I would just call it my string. And it's for whatever you're going to use in your script. And if I wanted default values for the string, I could create one. I could say test is my default, but I could also say my valid values are test, or my valid value values are, 1. Some string, and I could build up this list here to further basically standardize how people execute these scripts. You could put other constraints on here, set the length on here if you need to. But once we save this, we go back to our script. We'll see that we have another attribute here. So I simply activate it by clicking on this little green activate here. It becomes valid. Now I can actually insert this. If I had a new command line, and I'm just going to throw this in here as a test right now. But say I had some other command line to do something, I don't know what it would be, so I'm just putting some junk in here, but I could basically take that attribute and stick it on this command and apply this. And I'm going to save this just for example. But when I go back to this thing and I execute it now and pick some device, I'm going to pick some device here. Not going to push it to this box, but by the way, you can push this to more than one device. And that's the beauty of actions. You can create it once and send the same command to multiple devices. But anyway, it's done now. But now you see I have dynamically rendered my new attribute here. And so I'm going, and then you see my options now. It's going to say test, but also has the other one that I said is a valid option here. So I can again set my values here. I can preview this again and see that now I have the previous commands, and now I have my command followed by my attribute that I've added. So it's very powerful and flexible in how you can use these. Go back here, clean that up here. So I'm going to delete that. Apply. I'm going to delete my attribute. Just remove it. And then so if you might have multiple attributes in here. it could be a long script. You may want that when the screen pops up asking you for attributes, you may want to control the order. So that's where the attribute presentation is, and that would control that order on that screen. Now, that's a very simplistic case for a config. You can do the same thing for a show. Do a new show command, and again, just give it some name. And you're just going to come in here, and on the scripting, you're just going to add. Again, it could be embedded CLI or Perl, and you're just basically going to just type your show command, show run, show whatever, and then that's your script. You don't have to have attributes, but if you want them, you can put them in there depending on what you need to do. What I want to show you here too is we precede a bunch of these. What I want to show you is there's a CLI-based example, which is what I just showed you, but there's also Perl-based examples I wanted to show you. If you do create a Perl script, I'm going to have to view the script to see that. And so here's an example of one single script that has multiple scripts in it that execute for different models of device, layer 3 firmware, or if it's iSCSI or iCLI versus the Power Connect down here. But here is just basically it's just Perl statements that tell it what command to send. So print lines are just saying send the command config, print line, and then send this command. But the other part of this is that we have attributes in this as well, and you can see how we've attributed various things in here. And so again, it gives you more flexibility and more control over how you want to send commands to a box. It's not just embedded CLI, you're pretty much just forced to do them line by line, order by order. It's going to execute one by one. Perl will give you the ability to put in these if statements or looping, using Perl syntax, the ability to control exactly what gets set based on conditions and various other things that are on the box. So Perl's a little more flexible. So I just want to point that out, that you do have those two options. I'm not going to dive into the other scripts at this point, but in a nutshell, that's a very high-level pass on actions. And what we're going to find out in the next few sessions are how actions can fit into our automation and event processing rules, because you can have an event come in and have that trigger an event processing rule that will go out and perform some action. It could be one of these actions, and it could be go do a show run, go do a backup. It could be a remediation action where we actually resolve a situation that was detected via an event. And so it's a very powerful kind of piece of the automation framework. We'll have further deeper dives on the actions. That's just a high level pass through on how actions are created and how you would get them into your system if you want to manually create them. These examples are also seeded on most of the systems already. So you can, if you just look for example, you'll see examples of how to do these particular types of things. And so you don't need to necessarily view the script. If you copy these system ones, copy it to your own. Use copy full schema. Basically, the attributes won't be shared, and you can basically save this as your own copy and then edit it as you see fit. Actually, let me go back to that. Maybe I do want to show you that one. And so here is showing us a copy, and there's nothing in here for associations, but here you can see examples of an SNMP script where we're saying configure, we're saying the host name, whatever the new host name is, SNMP server community, your community, and authorization are all attributes. And the interface loopback, you're basically going to select interface loopback number here, and then some various other attributes here. And so you can use this as an example to create your own. And so you come in here and look at the attributes and see this is the set of attributes here. These are the attribute presentation here. And when you go to execute something like this, you're going to get obviously a selection for something, one or more devices. But then here's our screen that's going to ask us for values. And so it's a good way to learn how to use these is by looking at these examples. Same thing for the Perl example. Okay, I want to thank you for watching. I hope that was useful. We will have more detailed sessions on actions in future sessions. Thank you.